Kerwin Gaines here. Welcome back to the Statesman. It's a podcast, it's a conversation, however you want to classify it, I don't even know. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for making it to week 2. We were a little worried, but week 2 did happen. It is happening, praise God. It is occurring. I need for you to do something for me. I know it's like, why is this guy asking me for something and I'm just tuning in? I need for you to like us, love us, follow us, all those things that you need to do on social media, and that's the Statesman with Kerwin. Please follow us, keep it going. We now have advertisements that we're going to start, so I need all that stuff, right? So thank you so much for tuning in and supporting us. We appreciate it. And with advertisers, we'll be able to come on again next week, so we're excited about it. Today, you may have remembered conversations in the past that I've had with Charlie Copeland, and I've called him my nemesis, my Republican Party nemesis. This is not Charlie, but he is a nemesis nonetheless. Mr. Brandon Brice, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
To the Statesman. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. We talk on and off the air at times.
We do.
And more so now, I think, since the presidential election, than I think that we have in previous conversations. I don't know how to put this gently, man. I'm trying hard.
Okay.
How? I would rather say, is it easy being a black Republican? I won't ask you how can you be a black Republican.
So let me just say this. I've had this question since I was 18 years old.
When you made the choice.
When I made the choice, I was at Howard, HBCU.
Right.
And
in Washington.
True story. I was on Capitol Hill. This is before really kind of before the internet. And it was before you had all this social media where we literally had folders with resumes. And what happened is I had, the popular thing to be was to work on Capitol Hill. Jesse Jackson Jr. wasn't in jail yet. And this is all, And so what happened is, we would go and give our resumes to different congressmen. And at the time, different congressmen, they're not hiring or not looking for staff. And a Republican congressman from Georgia, his name is Max Burns, I'll never forget him. He looked at my suit, I was a few pounds lighter, and he says to me, "Are you looking for a job?" And I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Well, my office isn't hiring, but let me walk you down to a couple of my members." So we went to Joe Wilson's office. Remember him? Mm-hmm. You lie, that guy. He said, I've just hired a staffer, but he said, let me walk you to the speaker's office. Now, keep in mind, I'm 19 years old. I don't really...
That wasn't Gingrich at that point, was it?
It was Hastert.
Oh, yeah, great.
And I didn't really know the power of the Speaker of the House.
Right.
So I remember going in and seeing this big guy, and ironically, the first thing he asked me, he said, "Do you like the sport of wrestling?" Because he was a wrestler. I said, "Sure." He said, "You start Monday." And that conversation changed my life for the next 20 years.
Dennis Hastert.
Hastert. And ironically, my first big boy job was, with WWE. I worked for WWE for a few years after that. But I say that because it was an opportunity that came my way when others did not. Now, you ask how, why, Trump. Trump he's a unique character. And I think
that's one way to put it.
He's unique. He's different. But the reality is, this guy's been in your TV for the last 40 years. And I think the opportunity is these policies, in some cases, are now creating spaces for people of color to become a part of this thing we call business and understanding that business is something we do every day. When you are making decisions about how you're going to spend your money, what you're going to pay for your kids, these are all business fiscal decisions. And I think what's happening now is this is an opportunity where people, African Americans, now have the opportunity to say, if I want better, now I can have the choice to vote better. Now, am I advocating that all people should be conservative? No. But I am saying people of color deserve a choice. And I can tell you, I've driven around the streets of Wilmington. I've driven around the streets of Baltimore. I'm from the east side of Detroit. And I can tell you, our people, and Kerwin, you and I have talked about this, deserve much better than what we are getting and what we have gotten over the last 30, 40, and 50 years. And so Einstein said, in some cases, doing the same thing over and over again and accepting and expecting a different response is, it's ridiculous. And I think that it's time for something new. Now, what does that mean? That can mean advocating for different policies. That can mean seeing more people of color on the Republican side and the Democratic side, so there's a balance. That can mean us not taking what politicians say, but actually holding them accountable and getting rid of them when they don't do what they said they were going to do. And so all these things matter when we sit back, we get rid of the political theater, and we say, are people of color better now than we were 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago?
Brandon, I've heard that from both sides.
Yeah.
I've heard that from the Democratic Party. I've heard that from proponents of the party. I honestly don't think that we are as good as we need to be. Mm-hmm. But there's a major thing about the Republican Party, and I have friends that are Republicans. I have people that I care about deeply that are Republicans.
Yeah.
But I cannot overlook the embedded racism that party has. And so many members of that party don't give a damn about me, my family, regardless of income, and anyone else who looks like me. But they carry this term of patriot that's thrown around through the Republican Party. And I can't see anything patriotic about forgoing diversity. I can't see anything patriotic about systematic bigotry. I can't see anything patriotic about women's rights and refusal to choose and all these other things. I can't see that. I can't see anything patriotic about everybody voting the same way. And don't get me wrong, I understand that Democrats do that too. But to the point where it's at the detriment of society. So when I take that, and then I take your point, which is absolutely valid, where do we stand 4 years from now? Where are we any better 4 years? I'm still stuck down here at these rungs. And my grandparents were card-carrying Republicans. And I see them as mentors when they were alive. And I remember my grandfather driving Republicans to the polls.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is the party that he was a part of. I don't. So when I jokingly say, and I know that you're a thoughtful man, but when I jokingly say, how can you be a part of this party? And not only be a part, like just to be able to say, I have friends that are black Republicans, and I joke them all the time. And they joke me too. but you're a part of the party's administration. You're two from the top. Like, you're the guy for the state of Delaware.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you're going through, I don't know if there's hallways at Republican headquarters, but do you feel as though those hallways were designed with you in mind?
So, Kerwin, there's a saying, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And
That's true. I agree with
and
that.
I like to eat, as you can see. And so I joke, but I'm serious in that we can't continue to say what's not happening if we're not at the table. And furthermore, if we're not creating spaces where it's not just important for us to be at the table, but who else are you bringing at that table? And I think this is a very important topic when we are talking about how do we create spaces where conservative conversations can even be had or discussed. I'll give you an example. There are many people of color who look just like me and you, who are all about better education for their children, who do not believe that the government knows what's right with the money that they earn, who believe in protecting children and not telling someone at 3 years old, we think you're something else. I mean, this is really the conversations we're having in 2026 and 2025.
Now, I don't think this is irony, but I've had this conversation with a state senator and a U.S. senator, and they disagreed with me, but I'm very interested to know your thoughts and on the same questions pertaining to you. I'm not going off topic. I believe that black folk and the Republican Party are this close.
Absolutely.
In beliefs.
Absolutely. But
I think they're this close.
But the messenger matters.
I believe that black folks and the Democrats are actually this far away.
You hear what I said?
I heard what you said, but the people at home, they may need to break this down a little bit more.
Yeah.
So you're from Detroit.
I am.
Part of my family's from Flint. We won't go there, but they're similar. They're similar in ideas.
Absolutely.
Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Okay. I think there is no one in my family, and I'm saying I'm thinking about my Thanksgiving table.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a big, beautiful table, and my family's sitting around it, and I'm thinking of all those people, right? So that's my census group. That's my random sampling. All of them love a gun.
Well, wait a minute now. Love a gun or need a gun? There's a difference.
People in Flint
There's
need
a gun.
There
you go.
But to that point, they don't have any problems with guns.
Right.
So let's just take that one off the table.
Yeah.
Okay? All of them at that table don't consider themselves they, thems, or she, hims. They know what they are without the pronoun. 90% to 95% of the people around that table love themselves some Jesus. All of them want their communities to be better. Most of them don't trust politicians. So when you have that random sampling and you're comparing these answers to questions asked of people promoting the Republican Party, you're saying, why aren't most of these people sitting around this table, at least half of them Republicans, when in fact, over 90% of them are Democrats? It goes back to your statement about the messenger.
So the message, I'm glad you mentioned this because this is why, whether you like the Trump man or not, why I think people they voted for him. I mean, the reality is if you look at the last election, it wasn't close. And, I think what it is because we value truth. And I think the challenge is whether you don't like this guy or you do, there's always been a blatantly honest truth that some feel
With Trump?
well, hold on, that some feel that this president has been able to convey. And I'll give you an example. A few years back, he said, well, the election was rigged with Bernie Sanders. And the left said, well, that's not true. Well, it turned out it actually was. Then there was a conversation of Biden's health status. And the left said, oh, he's fine, he's okay. Well, it turned out that wasn't true either. And so what's happening is that the American people are saying, I don't like his style. I may not like the way he operates, but I feel like he's honest with me. Now, when I say the messenger, the reason why I think there's that gap is I think we have always been strong on message, weak on messenger. And I think that now it matters who's selling the message. I'll give you an example.
So do you feel that President Trump is the best seller of the Republican Party's message?
Well, the reality is millions of Americans voted him in.
That wasn't my question.
Hold on, let me tell you. Was he the best messenger? That comes down to the voter. But I will say this. I find it interesting that since the days of Reagan, which Reagan hasn't been president in 20, 30 years, this president, for whatever reason, was able to get almost 15 to 20% of the African-American male vote. And so I say that because something resonated there in this last election where the left, in some way, shape, or form, was not able to garner the sentiment of African-American men in this country, whether it was jobs, whether it was the left's approach on incarceration, whether it was the fact that, for the first time in many cases, you heard a Republican talk about putting money back in people's pockets. Something registered. And again, I go back to, the messenger isn't just with the president. The messenger can be statewide, in city elections. And I think that this is a unique opportunity for the conservative movement. Let's move past republicanism. The conservative movement to find, recruit, and have non-traditional folks that you would consider Republican talk about their issues. And here's the catch. When you talk about what does it mean to be an African-American conservative in America today, our issues are not the same issues across town. What do we care about? We care about education. Why? Because in many cases, that is the thing that helps. That's the beacon of hope for so many children that don't have it and feel trapped in some of our failed schools. We care about prison or incarceration and what happens when a person is released and making sure that they don't go back. We care about issues of, you work hard for your money. I know you do. You're an entrepreneur. I think the government shouldn't be able to take half of what you earn. So there's a certain message that has to resonate with the voter. And I think, the reality is, it took a man who had been on TV for the last 40 years, who was a TV reality star, if you will. But one thing I think the president understands that the left still hasn't realized, he understands the power of messaging and words. And words matter.
Not to him. I have learned, one, I need you to go back and tell me whether or not you believe that he is the correct messenger for your party, right? The second thing is, what I have learned, and I want to be honest with you, I've applied it in my life since November. Words are excellent. But and people say, even in your enemies, you have to learn from them. Absolutely. And I am learning from this president.
Absolutely.
That if you say it enough times, regardless of it being factual, regardless of it being honest, regardless of it being legal, if you say it enough times, it will either happen or people will believe it?
I'll go a step further. You asked me, do I think he's the right man for the job, essentially? I think the president's whole promises made, promises kept is something that every day he's showing that he's delivering. Now, the question is when people say, well, we don't like what he's doing. Well, the reality is everything the president told you he was going to do,
he's done.
He's doing.
And I've told people that, don't complain.
So promises made, promises kept, regardless of how we may feel or what we may like. Now, the question is, as people of color, how do we benefit from that? And what have we gotten in the last 8 years as opposed to now? And so I go back to asking you, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago and 8 years ago?
Let me tell you my problem before we go to break.
Yeah.
But let me tell you what my problem is. It isn't whether or not we're better off now than what we were or what we have been over the past 8 years. Brandon, my problem is now we're on the menu. Are we next? Are we next?
Well, when you say on the menu, before, and I mentioned this because you asked me earlier, I said for me, it was important to be at the table or we would have been on the menu. But when you say the menu, I look at it as now we have opportunities that are open. Now we have more investment in minority businesses, which impact people like you and I who are entrepreneurs. Now we've got a glimpse and we've got a spotlight on actually fixing education and not just kicking education down the street and saying, oh, we're going to do something about it, but nothing ever changes. And so again, I go back to the
Department of Education.
I go back to promises made, promises kept.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to come back to you right after these messages. If you think the conversation here is getting warm, you should hear what we talk about when the cameras are off. Thank you so much for continuing this conversation. We have Mr. Brandon Brice from Delaware's GOP. What is your official title now? I know because this week there's been some moving around.
So I serve as the secretary of the Delaware GOP. And, really it's important that we have representation at state party. I think we're doing a lot of great things statewide. We've got a great team. And I think, again, you mentioned messaging. That is our number one priority, is to create an opportunity where our voters in Delaware have a real choice. And when you think about things like education, I'll give you an example. Did you know that we spent almost $17,000 to $18,000 per student?
It's 23.
And yet we're ranked at 46 in the nation.
I'm tracking that issue more than you know.
So we're literally next to Mississippi and Louisiana when we talk about the quality of education. And yet, states like Massachusetts spends $2,000 to $3,000 less, and they're top five. And so I think Delaware, we're going to talk about Delaware. Let's have some hard, honest conversations about where we are. We just said the ride over here, I saw buildings that were falling apart. I saw things that no one should see driving down the street. And I think what that is that's a testament to the quality of education that we're giving to our folks. And I can tell you, I'm a true believer that your area code should never determine the type of quality of education that you get.
I concur.
But that's what we're getting. And so we're basically, what we're saying is that if you can't afford quality education, your kids are stuck. And that's not fair. And I think these are the type of messages that the GOP is trying to push statewide. And it doesn't matter where you are, what neighborhood, what your socioeconomic background is. We have issues that need to change immediately. Anytime We have major companies that have been the bedrock of Delaware, and they're leaving because we're becoming less and less and less of a pro-business friendly state. Those are jobs going out the window. And I think that these are the type of things that it shouldn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. It's common sense. And these things need to be addressed not tomorrow, not next week, today.
Right. This is my thing. I agree with you. I don't think that your wallet should determine the education of your children. I don't think that the overall cost of your home, which is dependent upon the tax base, which goes to your school and trickles down, should be a determinant factor in regards to the education of your children.
Yeah.
You're going to jump on me for this one.
No.
I don't believe that it is an issue of party.
Well, here's the thing. You're right. First, I'm not going to jump on you. It's your show. but no, it is an issue. It's not an issue of party. However, let's be honest. The city council, which Philadelphia has 1.6 million people and less than, 9 council people? Delaware has barely 80,000 residents, and we have 13 council people.
We have 1 million residents.
No, I'm sorry, Wilmington.
Okay.
Wilmington. So already we got too many council folks. But I say that because you have 12 council people who are Democrats, 1 Republican. In the legislature, you've got almost a supermajority, essentially, soon, but you've got a majority. Again, Democratic control. You've got the head of the state, Matt Myers, good friend of mine, good colleague, but also Democrat. So my point is that when you think about it, where's the balance? Where's the pushback? Where is the challenge on policy? It doesn't exist in Delaware.
No, I can't.
It doesn't exist in Delaware,
that's not
Corey.
true,
And you and I both know
that's not true.
Okay.
I think that there has been a lot of policy, and I think that this election, more than others, brought that to light within each party. Because from me and you and I were both part of the campaign trails for our parties, and we're part of discussions in the front and in the back in regards to strategy of winning elections. I can tell you from my side that not only was education at the forefront of the conversation, and you heard that throughout all the stump speeches, but the conversation was, we need to revamp, change right now. Cindy Martin, I think, is excellent for the state of Delaware. I think that she's bringing a whole new just ideas of how to fix this mess that we're in, and she's done it before in bigger districts. And I'm very optimistic about that. But that conversation would have never occurred if we weren't disagreeing with one another.
But Kerwin, you just mentioned it, it's being talked about. It's being discussed. Yep. It's being in the situation room. But where is the movement? Where is the real change? It ain't gonna happen.
I think it's gonna happen. I think it's gonna happen.
And you know why it's not gonna happen? You know why it's gonna happen?
Tell me.
Because the reality, when you talk about the quality of education, there are stakeholders that don't want it to change, and none of these elected officials on the left are willing to challenge it. And if you got one, show me one.
There have been.
Show me one.
I will tell you. Every election from the state, even with our governor, Matt Meyer, who you spoke of, he challenged education. He said, no, we're not doing this anymore. No more status quo. Even his opponent, who did not win, Bethany Hall, she challenged and made some very critical discussions. Not only is the challenge not there, but the Secretary of Education didn't make the cut, right? From the previous administration. He had to go. From the local side, from the city side, the city of Wilmington has opened up the Office of Educational Advocacy for the city of
What are
Wilmington.
the literacy rates in Wilmington?
And that's why that office opened up. But that's why that office opens up. And that answers your question. They are making strides.
You know what? There's something.
For correction.
I'm going to coin something on your show.
Please.
I'm going to call it political theater. You know what that is? That's all.
That's
I've got
not
the
coined.
talking points.
That's not coined.
The reality is, what are you
the city,
actually doing about it?
When the city opens an Office of Educational Advocacy, that's doing something about it. When we do a nationwide search for our Secretary of Education, and we
Who
find
came from California?
Who cares?
Is that the motto we really want to practice? I don't think so.
She can come from Jupiter. I don't care. If she has a solution to this
Let's
problem.
look at other states where education is actually working. Maybe Massachusetts, maybe New Jersey, California.
Let's not look at California. Let's look at San Diego. California. Let's not look at it as a state, because she wasn't in charge of the entire state. She was in charge of a city in Southern California. And those rates in those cities in regards to literacy, students attending, and betterment of society in the whole 9 yards, that has improved.
Kerwin, you and I both are going to agree on this, is the issue that continues to plague our streets, plague our schools, plague our policies in Dover, is political theater. Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be heard. No one wants to challenge the status quo.
Wouldn't you say that political theater is our president, though? I mean, how much more?
Well, wait. You just said he gets everything he said he was going to do.
But no.
He's doing. Did you not just say that?
You just said political theater.
Did you not just say that?
And equated political theater to my party, right?
Here's the reality.
You have Barnum and Bailey.
Promises made.
Barnum and Bailey in Washington.
Now listen, I didn't say I agree with all the promises.
Ringmaster.
Wait a minute. I didn't say I agree with all the promises.
And we're coming back to being on the table. Don't think I did not.
Wait. I didn't say I agree with all of the promises. But the reality is, whether you like the man or not,
I don't.
What he said he was going to do, he's doing or has done. And you actually agreed to that. That you said, you know what?
I believe that there were a lot of things that he campaigned and made it clear.
And he's doing them.
Made it clear during
it's not
his
political
campaign.
theater when it's actually being done.
With them. That's why I didn't vote for him.
But
just because he said it.
Hold on.
I'm going to deport
done.
innocent people and do all these crazy things and whatever. He said he was going to do that.
And he's doing it.
But that doesn't make it right.
But here's my point. We talked earlier on political theater, and what I'm saying is we've got all these campaign promises in Wilmington and in Dover, and all of these electeds that say, oh, when I get to Dover or get to Washington, this is what I'm going to do, and it still hasn't been done yet.
What did you think about George Floyd's murder?
It was extremely unfortunate. And the sad part about that is, as a parent, as a child of two parents who are police officers, part of it is these law enforcement people, these officers, men and women, deserve our utmost respect because every day they put themselves on the line. Now, I saw the video, and it was a tragedy, and it should never have happened. But I will say,
did Derek, forget his last name, the officer,
brutal force. It doesn't take.
Did he kill him, Brandon?
Didn't you watch the video?
I'm asking you.
Did you watch the video?
Did he kill him?
Did you watch the video?
I did.
Well, then you have to answer your question.
It doesn't sound like you're answering my question.
No. I'm answering the question because
and that's why people can't respect the Republican Party.
You know why? Because here's the catch.
You guys can't answer the difficult questions.
Let me say, the same group that said we needed to defund the police didn't take it to advantage that right outside this studio. Hold on, Kerwin. Right outside this studio, you've got high crime rates.
Did he kill him?
Hold on. You've got high crime rates. And the reality is, what about the protection of people who actually need it? That didn't get taken into consideration.
That wasn't my question.
Hold on. As far as George Floyd, it was a murder. It was a tragedy.
It was a murder.
So
he did kill him.
Well, again, you watched the video, Kerwin.
He killed him.
But let me say this.
Then why would our president try to pardon him?
Hold on, but let me say this. And I'm not responsible for what the president does. But let me also say this to you.
It's another
Hold on, but let me say this
to
you. I find it interesting that when we talk about issues around policing, the question of why do we not have more people of color that look like me and you on certain police forces?
I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more.
Wait, you know why that's important, Kerwin?
I couldn't agree with you.
You know why
more.
that's important? Because you and I, Kerwin, it's a cultural sensitivity that we know and have access to, where we can say, you know what, that's not a threat, go home. Because we have a relationship with the community.
Right.
The problem is that I think if we spent more time on opportunity for people of color, if we spent more time on access for people of color, and less time of trying to figure out or trying to pigeonhole someone into saying if something was a tragedy versus a murder, we would be much further, Kerwin. And I can tell you this, I think when we talk about opportunities, you know, there's the term of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think diversity is important. I think, you know, inclusion is important. But where's opportunity when we talk about that? Where's the opportunity to say, how do we make sure schools, inner city schools, are actually have quality curriculum? And on top of that, how do we make sure that things like trade schools are options for young people who may not have the money or resources to go to college? Those are the conversations I'd rather have, Kerwin, because those actually move to help recreate this thing that we call the middle class, which unfortunately you and I know is something that, you know, you hear very little about today, these days.
I'm not letting this go, Brandon. I'm not. I think I got you to admit that the
progress,
he was murdered.
Opportunity.
Why would this president, this person, float the idea of pardoning Derek Chauvin? And you know that's a fact. You know that your party has discussed that.
You know, Kerwin.
And then,
you know, Kerwin.
Well, hold on. I listened. I listened.
Okay.
So when I ask you, how could you be a part of a party that has these ideas and then directly you know that the floating of pardoning Derek Chauvin is not only real, but from a federal standpoint, more than likely going to happen. It's not going to help him in state time, but from a federal time. How can you be a part and defend people that have those ideas
Kerwin,
when in fact you know that this is planned to happen in the summer to promote civil unrest in our communities so we can move to whatever else? This is not far-fetched. This is true stuff.
Kerwin, you got kids?
I do.
Okay. A couple years ago in Virginia, there was a gubernatorial candidate, the reason Glenn Youngkin is governor now, who is a Democrat, your party, and said that parents didn't have a right to be in the classroom to know what was going on. He said that, and he lost, thank God. And that's your party. Do you subscribe to those ideals?
But I have the
do you subscribe to those same ideals?
No, I don't.
Then my case is point.
No.
You don't have to be
there's
a
something
part.
completely different in regards to educational staffing
it's not different
than it is to murdering.
Association, it's still association. And what I'm saying is,
but even if my party, and there's several things about my party that I don't like. There's several people in my party that I don't like. There's messages in my party and I don't like. But the difference that I have that I don't think the Republicans have, and I'll be very clear about this because I'm sure this is going to get clipped.
Sure.
Okay? Sure. I don't believe that there are many Republicans, and we see that in the way that they're voting now, that have the testicular fortitude to stand up on Capitol Hill, to stand up in their state house and say, no, I'm not putting up with this BS. And I'm not seeing that. And I have the expectation because I've seen that from people in the past. I've seen that from people in the past. And I'm not seeing it now. And for the life of me, I'm like, does this guy have a file on all these people somewhere? I mean, what is it? You know, is having office, having a position of power, being a representative, being a senator, Is it that important? Is the fear of losing that so great where you would just go against your values and your ideas?
Kerwin, I think you need to ask those federal and state elected officials here in Delaware that clearly vote against quality education by not supporting school choice. Ask them, is that against their values? And I find it interesting, Kerwin, that you would say that you've got issues around that, but didn't you just said it, where you talked about people of color have a hidden connection, if you will, to conservative values.
I don't even think it's hidden.
And so, but here's the catch. So why, if you take a senator or a congressperson from Delaware, you know your literacy rates are low in Wilmington. That's not a secret. You know that right now, the state, we fall at 46 in the nation. That's not a secret. And yet, when there are policies in Dover on Capitol Hill that can turn this ship around, they vote against it. Let me help you out.
Please.
You know why they vote against it? Because folks like the cocktail parties in D.C. They like having REP in front of their name. They like having SEN, senator, in front of their name. It comes back to people preserving themselves versus for the greater good. And so it sounds like it's not a Democrat or Republican problem. It's a political problem. And unfortunately, we have seen that, things that are blatant, like education, I can't imagine, it is criminal to vote against policies that keep young people from Delaware in failing schools. We've seen it in Wilmington.
I agree.
We've seen it across. But why do they continue to do it?
I don't know. But I've asked the question.
You know why?
I've had the testicular fortitude to ask these questions. Why? And nobody likes it, right?
Well, then maybe we need you to run.
No. So, but why is it, are we funding schools in Wilmington, building them wings and new whatever, and the proficiency, the basics.
Can't read.
Single-digit proficiency on reading and mathematics.
Yeah.
Single to double-digit proficiency in other things.
But here's
that are
my
important.
question, Kerwin.
But yet you're getting more money to fund these schools.
But here's my question, Kerwin.
I agree with you.
Hold on, but here's my question for you folks listening and watching. Who's in power?
Democrats have historically been in power in the state of Delaware since Mike Castle.
My point exactly.
I hear you.
No, don't hear me. Do something about it.
I'm bringing it up to people. I agree with you on this topic. In regards to education, I do think we're making strides, but we are not doing things well.
When we talk about protecting children, this is important. There are some of the things that I've read in Dover, where we have young people that are that essentially are being targeted because essentially they know that, in some cases, teacher unions, they're not going to support school choice. And my thing is, well, who do you work for, Congresswoman, Senator, State Rep? Do you work for the people of Delaware? Or, again, are you trying to get reelected? To me, education, Kerwin, and the issue, this school choice issue and this quality education, it shouldn't even be partisan.
But school choice, I think, is a joke.
Hold on. But it shouldn't be partisan. Because reality is...
And it's turned out to be partisan.
Because the reality is a kid is either getting educated or they're not.
Or private schools want to add to their coffers and generate revenue by giving people an option to just go to these other schools, and they can afford the lobbies where schools cannot, right?
So why, again, I go back to... Because I want to drive this in real quick for your listeners. Who's in power?
I understand.
Republicans don't control Dover. They're not in control of the counties. Well, Newcastle County. And they're not in control of the city.
So you think...
So if there's failure, who's in power?
Agreed. I'll agree. But if that's the case, do you truly believe, as an Howard-educated, smart brother, that dismantling the Department of Education and then bringing all that responsibility and dollars, which scares me to death, back to states who have made horrible decisions.
Yes. And I'm going to tell you why.
Is the best way to go.
Yes.
Oh, Brandon.
Hold on. Local control is always better, in my opinion, because
small government.
Because here's the reality. Why should why should somebody in Washington or Sussex County make decisions for things that are happening in Wilmington? Local control matters because you know why? And I can tell you, I don't think we adhere to, I don't think principles are brought into the conversation enough. These are the foot soldiers on the ground.
But Delaware is a unique place.
Unique how? Delaware way?
No. And trust me, I am so against the Delaware way. You have no idea. But let's just look at this from a logistics standpoint. Just the business side of doing business. We have 57, 58 municipalities.
We have barely a
3
million
counties.
people.
Exactly.
Listen, you can take this.
We have 3 counties. We have 58 municipalities. Could you imagine? And we're all within an hour of one another. That's like if New York City.
Kerwin, you can take this to the bank, and many of the members of the Wilmington City Council I'm friends with. I know them. I think they're good people. However, we have less than 80,000 people, and we have 13 council people. Where does that make sense?
I don't know. I'm talking about education. I'm talking about the dismantling of the Department of Education. I'm talking about that rolling back to states that are not even prepared to handle that responsibility. And let's be honest, the state of Delaware is not prepared to handle that responsibility. I'm talking about an administration that is looking at this from a very self-serving way, and that self-serving is of the 1%. I don't think that it is about the people. I'm not going to sit here and I'll be honest with me, Brandon, sometimes you can sell me a used car and I'm going to buy it, right? Because you got that Fox News thing that you do. But this, I still don't know how you can align with these ideas.
Because the time for change, Kerwin, for our folks is now.
And
let me finish. And it's important because for the last 20, 30, 40 years, we've heard things. We've been made promises. Kerwin, we can walk right outside this studio and you tell me, are we better now than we were 10, 20, 30 years ago?
Absolutely not.
And why is that? You know why? Because everyone's kicking the issue down, kicking the can down the street.
So you really think the change is going to come if I could get Delawareans of African-American descent to become Republicans, that there will be a change?
I think the change will come when the conversation changes. And I think that the change will come when now the legislature, you've got more representation from other folks and other parties and other ideologies than what you have right now. I mean, I used to laugh, Kerwin, when I used to get invited to speak on panels, right? And they said, we got the issue of the day. We want a state of the black, whatever. And I look at the panel and everybody's of the same political persuasion.
Same ilk.
And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, wait a minute. Where's the diversity?
Right.
Everybody's in agreement. What's the conversation? And so I think we need to empower. I think as people of color, we need to.
You truly believe that President Trump, is the empowerment president?
He's definitely a conversation starter.
I could start a conversation. Do you really believe that he has, beyond the fact that you're secretary in the GOP, hooray.
Sure.
You know for a fact, Brandon, that if you and I were sitting outside of Trump Tower
I was just there, actually. I was just across the street from Trump Tower. Not there, but I was across the street.
Close enough.
Yeah.
We would not be shooed away. We would be seen as equals. We would be seen as someone that he wants to listen to.
But let me ask you this.
No, answer the question.
When was
Do
the last
you believe
time? Hold on, Kerwin. That's not a fair question, because when was the last time you walked up on Mr. Biden's house?
I've had plenty of conversation.
No. I didn't say conversation. I said go to his home. You said Trump Towers. My point is this, Kerwin. Let's face facts. And in facing the facts, we realize there is no Superman. No one's coming to save us. But the opportunity is now we have a voice where we can negotiate for better.
You really believe that?
I do. And if there's one opportunity I want to leave your guests and listeners and watchers tonight, is be bold to think different, do different, and be different. And I can tell you that groupthink is never a good thing. And right now, we've got real issues in the state of Delaware, the first state. And until we get control of this education issue, this is going to be a much bigger problem much further down the line.
Well, with that being said, I appreciate it, Brandon. I appreciate all your comments. I'm just looking for testicular fortitude in regards to people making real decisions when they know they're not right. I'm looking for equality. I'm looking for a president that may not understand all my issues, but is willing to come to the table and have a discussion. I'm ready for trust, and I don't think that 50-some felonies is going to be, what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a president that can accept 2 terms and not want to go after a 3rd term, and ratify the Constitution in order to make that happen when there's legislation, as you know, that's currently in place trying to make that happen. So much to talk about. Thank you for having a discussion with me.
All right, anytime.
Thank you for constantly being the balance when I need someone to run things by in regards to what's going on in my country. And thank you so much for listening. You can check out Brandon Brice. He is the secretary of the Delaware GOP. Believe it or not, he's a great conversationalist, and I hope to have him back here on the Statesman as soon as possible. And we look forward to hearing from you and comments. Again, like us, love us, share us, do all of that stuff, because that's what's going to keep us here. And be sure to give me questions, even bad questions, even on TikTok. I don't know why you all hate me so much, but I love you. And so make sure that you continue to do that, and check us out next week right here on The Statesman.